Hello there and welcome to the Fastmarkets Live Lounge, brought to you by Aquatech. And this episode is being broadcast and recorded live on location. We are here at the Lithium Supply and Battery Raw Materials Conference in Las Vegas. Now, today I am being joined by Austin Devaney. He is CEO of Li7 Charged. Now, that is an advisory firm really focused on lithium market strategy, and he's actually just launched the company. But Austin has deep experience in this space, having spent more than a decade working across all the major industry players, everyone from Rockwood, Albemarle, and Piedmont Lithium. Along the way, he has really sort of shaped commercial partnerships with some of the biggest names in batteries and automotive, and he's now bringing those insights to companies who are navigating what is next in this sector. Over the next few minutes, we are going to be discussing the defining moments of his career, what it means to go independent, and I'm keen to get a few surprising stories from outside the boardroom, including his former life, which involved driving a school bus and apparently racing dirt track cars. Austin, I'm Georgia Tolley. Lovely to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Georgia, what a fun time to be here.
Well, it's great to have you with us. If you can hear rattling in the background, I'll just tell our listeners and our viewers that's because lunch is currently being prepared. So that's the rattling, it's the plates, and it's great news for our conference goers. But let's return to our interview, because you actually have spent about a decade, maybe more now.
15 years in the lithium industry. A tidbit that a lot of people don't know, I've been in the alkaline earth metals business for over 35. Alkaline earth metals are, if you remember from your chemistry class, all of those metals that are on the far left-hand side of the periodic table. So lithium, potassium, sodium, cesium, rubidium, all of those chemicals all function and act the same. They have very similar properties, and they're called alkaline earth metals. So you hear a lot about rare earth metals. That's a certain section of the periodic table as well. Well, alkaline earth is that second to the far left column in the periodic table.
What drew you to those chemicals? Were you a chemical engineer by trade?
Chemical engineer by training. My professors, I like to joke that my professors encouraged me to pursue a commercial path because they were worried I might blow something up in a plant. So I started off in the sodium business for a large company, Occidental Chemical, straight out of school, worked for them for 15 years, doing all things sodium and potassium. But that's how I got there. I was doing commercial stuff all along there and have progressed into lithium, which I joined the business about 2010. Okay, so
what excited you about lithium specifically? Because you obviously had huge expertise. You could have gone in any direction.
Yeah, the lithium atom to me is fascinating in terms of what it does. It has the highest electrochemical potential of any element on that chart. And what that means is it's really good for carrying electrons and donating electrons and serving battery applications. That's what's fascinating. It drew me because in 2009, there was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which was spurring a lot of battery development here in the United States. There were battery cars. Toyota had been building the nickel metal hydride hybrid batteries for years leading up to that, but really no one had pioneered lithium ion technology. And 2009, 2010, that was kind of taking off, and there were cars proliferating in that business, and that was what drew me to joining the business. At that time, batteries made up about a third, maybe a little less, of the lithium market. And most of those batteries were for consumer electronic devices, cell phones, other things. And then the rest of the market was glass and greases and other major things, but batteries were poised to take off then. There's been fits and starts over that period of time. We've seen China develop as really the major player in the battery markets, but there are other places that have developed and implemented technologies which have been really earth-shattering, because the first EV that I was involved with purchased a Nissan Leaf, 2010. The Nissan Leaf at that time, when we purchased it, had 84 miles of range.
Is that all? Wow.
Yeah, and it was a city car.
Was it a hybrid or?
It was not a hybrid. It was a full
pure
battery electric car.
Wow.
Didn't have the best batteries. They were LCO batteries. Then the Mitsubishi had the iMEV and Chevrolet had the Volt. Those were really the first electric vehicles available around the world. The Chinese didn't. BYD had a few vehicles. They were just starting. They were actually an internal combustion engine manufacturer first before they went to battery. You didn't have the proliferation of EVs in China that you have today. So what drew me to the industry was throughout my career, I've been involved in automotive businesses and the chemical supply to those automotive businesses. So it really was kind of a mix of my interest in the automotive sector, wanting to work with delivering batteries and technologies and lithium specifically to the companies in that value chain.
Was there a moment in the last sort of 35 years where you feel your career sort of pivoted? Was there a particular role where you feel you'd accelerated very quickly or just everything crystallized for you?
Probably two things that I would point to in my career over that period. The first was leaving a really large company. The first company I worked for out of college had 21,000 employees. I like to joke that when you get a company that size, you have people who their only jobs are writing policy manuals. And so that kind of environment was different. I went to work for a really small company after that. We had about 100 employees, but only 5 people were the management team. I was responsible for all our commercial activities. And what I like to tell people was when I wanted to have a sales meeting, I just turned off the radio in the car. That was it. It was me, myself, and I. That was the sales team. And so it was a really different experience. One of the other pieces that came out of that time was the fact that there were 100 people who also relied on me doing my job. It was really very breathtaking and a lot of responsibility that you had to carry, knowing that when you woke up in the morning, doing your job well would lead to all of these other people continuing to have their jobs. Because if you didn't do your job, there wouldn't be sales made and you wouldn't have to deliver products and you wouldn't have to make anything.
That's high pressure.
It was, and it really crystallized the idea for me that I enjoyed the opportunity to work in an environment that was smaller. And you had a lot more responsibility and influence on the direction of kind of what you were accomplishing and things like that. Definitely high pressure, but it's one of those things that you kind of got to relish that moment and take it on as a challenge and figure out ways that are beneficial both to you personally, the things that you enjoy, developing relationships, as well as the people that you work with.
With that sort of benefit of hindsight, what would be one lesson you wish you'd learned earlier in your career?
I would say, I think I've always been really good at developing relationships with people. I think at times I have had a harsh personality with certain people. I've mended those relationships, but at the same time, I think having a personality that really is passionate about what they're doing is super important, but at times you have to rein that in and make sure that you don't overstep your boundaries with other people.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the landscape will have changed slightly as well. EQ has become more important, a more valued attribute in leadership over the last few years at least. Okay, so let's talk about role models, because of course you're one now, but when you were going through your career, was there anyone who you in particular looked to as a mentor? 2
people kind of stood out when I kind of go through and think about who really helped me guide my career, figure out where I needed to be. The first was help me understand that you shouldn't have those knee-jerk reactions. I had a boss when I was 19 years old, 18 years old. He fired me on the spot.
Wow.
On the spot. Something happened in our shop. I was a mechanic in an auto shop. A picture broke, and he took it as my fault for it having happened, fired me on the spot. And it crystallized the opinion that Floyd Slice was not the nicest guy in the world.
I would agree.
You really needed to not have those reactions. Another guy, Raul Escorbe, who was a coworker of mine, really allowed me to understand the value of collaboration with others. And really, that the work that he did to help me understand how people can come together and achieve a result that they can't do individually, I really value that parameter that he instilled upon me.
That is very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to come away from your career specifically now and pull out a little bit to talk about lithium more generally.
Yes.
Everyone says that the market is moving very quickly, but is there a bit of the industry that actually maybe is moving too slowly from your point of view?
Yeah, I might counter that. I'm not sure that the industry is moving as quickly as many people think.
Interesting.
Volumes have grown amazingly large from where it once was. When I joined the industry, it was 125,000 tons of LCE. This year, it'll be 1.5 million tons or a little larger. So whatever it is, it's about 8 times larger in size. So definitely growing faster. But in a sense, a lot of that's not happening where a lot of these people here at the conference are working.
Yeah.
A lot of that's happened in China. A lot of that's happened at what I would call easier places to develop. We have a lot of challenges in front of us to grow faster. But the technology that will take us there is still moving very slowly. That's kind of the slow side of things that I think really will be a challenge for the industry to keep up with future demand. I think the supply side will be really challenged because we've seen in this current pricing environment almost a cold winter on financing and development of plants. And without the foresight to look out 5 or 10 years and have a dedication to getting to a large leader in the industry or anything else, I think that's what I'm more concerned about than anything, that the supply of lithium constrains the deployment of electric vehicles. I love electric vehicles. I'm very passionate about lithium, very passionate about electric vehicles. They do a super job of efficiency of delivering people, goods, whatever, from point A to point B. I like to reference the fact that when you take a BTU of energy and convert it into a mile driven, an EV does that 3 or 4 times more efficiently than any other form of energy. Don't care if it's natural gas, coal, hydro, you name it. An electric motor is so much more efficient than an internal combustion engine. That in and of itself is the key to why EVs will be successful.
I have to say that one of my sort of biggest takeaways from this conference personally is how I want to use the word ballsy, but I don't think I'm allowed to say that on the tape. So I'll start a sentence again. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me from this conference is going to be how incredibly confident and incredibly confident people have to be to invest in this sector, because everyone can see that it's the way the world is going, but the amount of money that you have to put down in order to take yourself in that direction is just staggering.
It is. I mean, it's the amount of investment the industry needs, and not just in the lithium space, but in the cathode active material, the anode space, battery cell manufacturing, retooling automotive production lines, digging mines, whatever it is a staggering number. But when you put it in context with what other industries have done, it's actually not that big. When you think about what the oil and gas, they build a refinery and it's billions and billions of dollars, and you put the scale of that to what has to happen in the mineral side, it's not necessarily that big. The challenge is the commitment to seeing the end goal and getting there today, the availability of the financing side and the stomach to do it is still lacking. And that to me is probably one of the concerning things. And like I said, I sit back and say, I don't want lithium to be that constraint, but I'm very concerned that it will be.
Okay, so we'd already spoken briefly about your passion for electric vehicles. We both drive electric cars. What excites you about the innovation in the electric vehicle field specifically? We've been talking on this podcast about things like automation, about recharge, about range. Do you think that there is enough going on in developing the EV market?
100%. And I look at, the first batteries that were installed in a Tesla Roadster were LCO laptop batteries. They were 18650s. They put 7,000 of them in a battery pack. And so they essentially took laptop batteries. They didn't do anything.
Just stacked them in the car, basically.
Yeah. And it was a big square box that they put in the back of the car. They had a Lotus chassis, and they put these big stacks of batteries in the back to make an electric car. The next were layered NMC LMO batteries that were in the Volt, the Leaf, and the iMEV. The chemistry that wasn't there, those batteries didn't last as long as the batteries that we see today. We went from energy densities that were 160 watt hours per kg. Today, you're pushing 300. So you've almost doubled the just what the chemistry alone allows a battery to discharge, which allows your car to go farther, last longer, all of those things. The innovation's there. So I feel confident that, and I think the flip side of it, your last guest was talking about range being key. And you get to this balancing point of the cost of a car and how big the battery is and how far someone drives and what kind of range they need. And I think for a lot of people, and there was a CEO of General Motors probably about 20 years ago who said that the key to getting electric vehicle penetration was getting butts in seats. It was a real simple term, but it really meant seeing your neighbor with an EV, seeing your coworker with an EV, and understanding and gaining that knowledge that allows you to take the leap and become an EV owner. Once you become an EV owner and figure out, I'll leave the house every day with a full charge. I don't have a real difficult time finding a charge in my town if I need it, if I'm going to take a trip or something else. There's a whole planning aspect that goes into that, but I think what you find is the innovation that we've come from the first electric vehicles, and I'll call them the first 30 years ago in the 1990s, because there were electric vehicles 120 years ago, but those were lead acid. We're not going to talk about those. But really where we've come from in terms of what an electric vehicle offers, and most of the manufacturers today consider them premium offerings. Everything in your car is premium. There is a pricing component in the EVs that are offered that we don't have a mainstream EV because the manufacturers don't offer a mainstream. There is the Toyota Corolla is not today, but has been one of the highest selling vehicles around the world. It's a very basic vehicle transportation. There's no such thing of that, at least outside of China, for a basic electric vehicle. All of them have self-driving or adaptive driving support things, high-end,
big screens,
all types of entertainment things.
Yeah.
They all have super ventilation, massaging seats, whatever it is, self-parking. They're offered as premium vehicles, and really it'll be kind of a scale and cost dynamic that'll move EVs and drive the volumes higher.
So you think, looking into the future, what do you think will be, the next frontier? And that can be a technological frontier, or that could be a geographical frontier. What do you think is the next threshold?
I don't really know that it's a next threshold. It's going to be distributive energy. What you've heard is battery energy storage systems, utility scale storage. Batteries will allow solar and wind. I was in, for your audience, you're going to laugh. I was in Greece for the last 2 weeks. Great place to visit. Windmills on a number of islands.
Yeah.
But the wind doesn't always blow. And the crazy thing was not that they had no wind. There were periods when they turned their windmills off because they didn't have a place to put the electricity. No one was using the electricity, so they didn't have batteries to put it into to buffer when they did need it, when the wind wasn't blowing. And so that's kind of what I think will be the the big push, because prices today are at a spot that whether it's the lithium material, the battery management systems, the packs that go into delivering grid-based storage, I think that'll be a notable push that we see for demand in 26, 27, 28.
Okay, there's lots of people here who are fairly new to the industry. There's a lot of excitement around it, and it's pulling people in who maybe previously worked in oil and gas. What would be your advice to someone who's coming in fresh?
One of the things that I've seen over the past 15 years in the lithium space, there is a lot of hype. And I think your last guest, he said it, really focus and dedication to a goal. Don't be distracted. And when you take on a project, see that through to the end. Make sure you're committed to kind of what your goal is, and you have a team there that supports that. And to me, that's really making sure that you understand what the goal of that you personally have and what your company's goal is, and you're able to describe that to people outside of the room.
Because we're in quite a sort of boom and bust industry here.
It is. And
you have to be able to hold your nerve. But then some people say that that's the same for oil and gas, that if you've got used to oil and gas, then you'll be all right in lithium.
In certain ways, but when you're thinking oil and gas, it is a combustible material. It goes away. It's gone. Lithium doesn't go anywhere. It's still in the battery. So you have recycling opportunities. And you're mining. Most of the mining isn't the same as what goes on in the oil and gas, where they have lots and lots of wells and it's distributed over large distances. In the lithium space, you tend to be in a lot more confined geography. There are a lot of things that are similar in that it's not always been a boom and bust commodity. The lithium markets haven't, but it's kind of working that way because of a lot of outside influences. As people they get a cold foot of being in the business, they walk away and they come back, and it's created that. You've got this. There are a lot of people who describe what they see as electric vehicle penetration rates, and you see negative articles, and it kind of says, "Oh, I don't want to buy an electric vehicle." But when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of what the business is, it continues to grow at a fascinating pace. I think anybody who comes from the chemical industry, the oil and gas industry, they'll take a lot of lessons they've learned there and bring those into the lithium business. It'll be good for the business.
Okay, so final question. This is the one that I ask everyone who joins us in the Fastmarkets Live Lounge. We are nearing the end of the conference. What will be your biggest takeaway from this year's event?
I'll surprise you. This is my 15th Lithium Supply Conference. I didn't go to the first, and I didn't go to 2019. There've been some conferences that Fastmarkets put on that have been just crazy enthusiastic about what's going on in the business. This particular year, I came into it not expecting the optimism that I've seen here. There are a lot of people optimistic about what they see as a future in the lithium business, the battery value chain, and so that's what I take away, is that there's a lot more people here than I would have expected. I was here in Las Vegas in 2020 when Fastmarkets had their conference here, and I think that was the beginning of COVID, and there were a little over 100 people here.
Yeah, my goodness me, I'm trying to think what month we're in now. June. Yeah, that was pretty COVID-y.
Yeah,
June was pretty COVID-y.
It was September of that year. They had actually delayed it by a couple of months because of COVID.
Oh my goodness.
And when you think about how many people are here, from a variety of aspects, you've got both developing companies, existing producers, financial institutions. You've got a lot of technologists here. So I find it really heartwarming, or at least very promising, that we see this group of people here trying to learn more and network in a better way.
Austin, thank you. It's been a really lovely conversation. Thank you very much for walking me through your career, for walking me through your perspectives. I really appreciate it.
Enjoyed it, Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure everyone listening live here will be grateful as well. And to you listening at home, I hope you enjoyed our conversation there. Remember, if you liked it, there are lots more episodes in this Fastmarkets Live Lounge series, and you can find them pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. So whether that is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, there's also full-length videos available on our Fastmarkets YouTube channel. Thanks, of course, to Aquatech, who've sponsored this series. Thanks to you for listening. Please also find us on our social media sites. That's where you can like, follow, interact, comment. We love to read your comments. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode.